Traceability for many companies is necessary for quality assurance purposes and for dealing with product warranties. The tracing functionality is especially important for products that represent a certain risk, such as pharmaceuticals, chemicals, or food, where errors in production could lead to a recall of the products. It is equally important for companies to be able to trace products with the guarantee back to the date that the product was sold. The tracing feature was expanded in AX 2012 R3 and lets you look into causes and initiate product recalls based on tracking dimensions such as item and batch numbers within a legal entity. It is especially powerful in the food and/or beverage industries with expensive merchandise. It allows you to trace raw material or ingredients from receipt through production and sales. It helps with the regulatory standards and quality management. The new form requires an item number, a tracking dimension, and a trace direction before you can select the trace action on the ribbon bar. Let's switch over to AX and perform a trace together. I'm here in the USMF company and I'm going to go to Inventory Management. Underneath Inquiries, I'll open up Tracing towards the bottom, and then Item Tracing. This opens up the new Item Tracing form. On the Trace Criteria tab, you must enter the details, starting with the item number. We'll select item D0111, and then the additional fields become available on the Trace Criteria tab. Here I can select the batch number. For my example, I'm going to use batch number 140915 or 918. If a serial number is valid, you can select the serial number. You can also enter the vendor batch number. If you know the site and warehouse, you can select that information here. You can also specify a date range. This will only pull transactions that have occurred between the dates that you have specified. For my example, I'm going to leave this open. The last thing I need to select before I can perform the trace is whether I want the trace to be performed forward or backwards. If you select forward, it will select the first transaction with this batch number and move forward. If you select backwards, it will select the last transaction with this batch number and move backwards in time. Now that I've selected the options, I'm going to go ahead and run the trace by clicking the Trace button. You can see now that the trace is completed, the Details Fast tab is populated with the detailed information about this trace. It uses a hierarchy much like the trace in previous versions of AX. You can see that there are many inventory adjustments for this particular item, and if you scroll through the list, you'll be able to see additional transactions. This particular batch number and transaction with the plus sign might have come from another detail. You can drill down into these details by expanding it or by selecting a row and clicking on View Details. If you select a specific node, you can also use the Trace from Node button to do a trace from that specific transaction. If we go down to the General Fast tab, you can see additional information about the line you have selected in the Details tab. The On-Hand Inventory tab will show you any on-hand inventory information for the selected item. The Batch tab will show you any batch information if the line selected has batch numbers. If there are batch attributes, the grid here will show you the batch attributes that are assigned to that specific batch number. You'll notice that there are buttons here to drill down and inquire upon that particular batch. If there are production orders related to the line you've selected, the Production tab would be populated with the production order information. If that production order had been reported as finished multiple times, you would be able to see the details of each report as finished created for that production order. The Quality Orders tab will show you any quality orders that might be related to the line that you have selected in the Details tab. If there are nonconformances, you would be able to use the Nonconformances button to drill down into the details of any nonconformances related to that specific nonconformance on that particular quality order. The last tab is Nonconformances, which will show you all nonconformances for the selected line, regardless of whether or not they are linked to a specific quality order. You'll also notice at the top there are many different buttons to drill down and view the details. In the item group, you can drill down into the batches or specific transactions. You'll also be able to see pending transactions. This is especially important because these are sales orders or open transactions that have not been shipped yet or completed. This allows you to prevent those transactions from being shipped in the case that a recall might need to be made. In the sales group, you can see customers that are affected by this particular trace. You can see which sales orders have been shipped and sales orders that have not been shipped. In the purchase group, there are buttons to view the vendors that might be affected by this particular trace and might need to be notified because of the recall. And you can also view the purchase order lines that are related to this specific trace. In the production group, there are two buttons to view the production orders related to this trace and any pending orders. Likewise, you've got buttons in the quality group to open and view the specific quality orders and nonconformances. You can also export the details to an Excel sheet or print a shipped to customers report that you can use to start the recall process. Thanks for joining me, and let's take a look at what we've learned in this module.